All right, guys, this is Hernando Thola, Jiu-Jitsu black belt and Jean-Jacques Machado, and this is the Jesus Coffee and Jiu-Jitsu podcast. I am your host out of Spokane, Washington, and today my guest is Clinton Terry. He goes by the Blind Grappler out of New Zealand. So thank you for jumping on. He's a brown belt, and he's also an active competitor. So here you go. This is a Blind Grappler. Thanks, man, for being on the show.
No problem. It's my pleasure.
Cool, man. And what made you wanna get out? I want people to know who you are. You know, I mean, you compete. You're active. You're an active competitor, and you don't let anything hold you back. You have a lot of following on Instagram, and you do a lot. We want to hear your story, so go for it, man.
So I was actually not born in New Zealand, which is something that I keep a bit because New Zealand kind of have a rivalry with Australia, kind of like America and Canada. Like, you know, not serious, but especially in sport, we have a rivalry. So it's kind of a joke that it's my dirty secret that I was actually born in Australia. My parents were on a working holiday over there when I was born. So that yeah, so I was born over there and I lived there for 1.5 years before I came back to New Zealand with my parents. Um, the first 2.5 years of my life were pretty, normal because I can't remember much of it, but it was pretty normal and everything. But when I was 2 years old, I got chicken pox, and the chicken pox got infected. So they gave me some penicillin to help with the infection, and I had a allergic reaction to penicillin and developed something called Stevens-Johnson syndrome, which is like maybe 1 in 1 million people have this reaction to penicillin. And when I got it, I was the first person in New Zealand to get a full body reaction. Before me in New Zealand, they'd had one kid that had developed the Stevens Johnson syndrome on his arm, and one lady who had developed it on her breast. But I got a really severe reaction, and it attacked my entire body. Stevens Johnson syndrome is basically, well, in the severe version of it that I had, is basically a blistering of the entire body. The whole body breaks out in blisters, and it especially attacks mucous membrane areas like the eyes, nose, mouth, lungs. So, um, yeah, so basically, I had blisters all under my eyelids. Basically, the way I went blind from the Stevens Johnson syndrome itself didn't make me blind, but what happened was there was a whole heap of blistering around my eyelids, and then every time I blinked, it scratched away all the corneas and tear ducts and that. So it caused physical damage to the eye. Um, so, and it's funny because the blindness is just one part of the ongoing difficulties that I have from Stevens Johnson syndrome. And interestingly enough, being blind is not actually the most crazy reason that I can do good at jiu-jitsu. I'll explain that in a minute. But so some of the other problems I have, my saliva glands got damaged, so I constantly have a dry mouth. I have to drink all the time. Like when I'm talking, when I'm coaching. Like imagine, I don't know how to explain it to people except maybe people that have had experience with weight cutting, and you get so dehydrated that your mouth just gets dry and there's nothing in there. That's basically what my mouth is like 100% of the time as I'm drinking liquid. So it's it can be a real pain, like when I'm eating food and stuff. Like I can't eat food without a drink. Um, when I'm coaching or talking for a long time, I have to drink water to keep my mouth wet and stuff. So that was another issue that I had. And then the other issue, which is, funnily enough, I think is more, I don't know, more of a challenge, or should be more of a challenge to doing what I do, is that it damaged my lungs as well. So I've got big scarring in my lungs. So a lot of the time when I breathe, it sounds like I've been smoking for 30 years because my lungs are damaged. And especially when the seasons change, going from summer to winter or winter back to summer, um, the scars contract. And like, honestly, when I train at the change of seasons, um, I'm always coughing and stuff at training. Sometimes people think I'm dying, and it's the scars stretching out. And sometimes when I have a hard training session at that time, I spit up blood, because the scars are like separating. So, and the scars fill up with liquid all the time. So sometimes if I'm having a bad day, it can feel like I'm drowning. And as you guys all know, you've got to be fit for jiu-jitsu, contact sport, or whatever. So the fact that I can get my fitness up to a level where I can compete in tournaments is probably actually more amazing than competing with being blind, because being blind, you just gotta, especially jiu-jitsu, it's a nice sport for blind people because it's a contact sport where you can feel where everyone's going. I've had plenty of people tell me that they roll blindfolded and whatever, and they can do it, and some people even say, oh, I do better rolling when I'm blindfolded because I think about it or whatever. So Stevens-Johnson syndrome actually did a lot more damage to me than just taking my eyesight. But you know, I was really lucky in the fact that my mom could have raised me in two different ways. Anyway, so with the Stevens-Johnson syndrome, I spent 3 months in intensive care. It looked like I'd been held by my feet and dipped in boiling water and held there. They had to like clean my skin down with saline solution every 4 hours. I died and had to be resuscitated 9 times, and it was pretty traumatic experience on my mother. But I was lucky because my mom, she could have gone two ways. She could have had pity on me and felt sorry for me being blind. Oh, poor my son, he's blind, and done everything for me and whatever. And I see this a lot with blind kids and their parents. But my mom decided to go the other way and be extremely tough on me. And right from my earliest memories, my mom's ethos was, you live in a sighted world, you have to fit in. Everybody else doesn't have to fit around you. You've got to find a way to be able to do things to the best of your ability. Don't expect people to do stuff for you. So a really basic example of this is like a lot of blind kids that I knew back then when I was younger. If they put their shoes somewhere and they forgot where they were, they'd say to their parents, oh, I can't find my shoes. And their mum would be like, oh, okay, I'll wait a minute, I'll get them for you, whatever. I would put my shoes somewhere and forget where I put them. My mum would be like, well, you should have remembered where you put them. Go find them. And I mean, it's a real basic example, but that's the sort of thing my mum was like. My mum was is a real clean freak. And every Saturday we'd get up early in the morning, and before we were allowed to go out and do our own thing, we would get given a room in the house that we would have to clean spotlessly. Like, we'd have to clean all the walls, we'd have to dust all the ornaments, we'd have to vacuum the floor, like everything would have to be perfect before we were allowed to go out and start our Saturday. And people would say things to my mum like, oh, you can't make him clean the walls. He can't see any marks on the walls. And my mum would say to them, well, he better find a pattern how to do it then, hadn't he? Because he's not leaving the room until it's done. And, that's the sort of thing my mum was like. She treated me like all the other kids, and she expected me to do things for myself. One of the things I get quite often is people see me walking around, especially like in my gym or areas that I know, and I move very confidently, and people say, "Oh, you can see more than you think." I'll tell you a funny story about that later, actually. But and it's because I don't drag my feet or anything. And the reason for that is my mom would literally, if she saw me dragging my feet to try and feel where things were on the ground, she'd walk up behind me and just slap my ass. Pick your feet up, don't drag your feet. And this wouldn't just be around the house, whatever. We'd go bushwalking, and she would guide me. And when you guide a blind person when you're being trained to do it, what you're meant to do is bend your arm at an angle, and the blind person's supposed to rest their hand on the inside of your elbow. And so my mom would guide me like that, and you walk one step behind the person that's guiding you so that you can feel what they're doing, like when they go up steps and when they go down steps and stuff like that. So that's how my mom would guide me through the bush, but she wouldn't walk at a slow pace. We'd have to walk at her pace, I had to keep up. So all of this was good for later on when I joined Jiu-Jitsu, because obviously it developed my balance and stuff very good. I wasn't sheltered and was never taken bushwalking or expected to do crazy things. Um, Funny on that though, when I got a bit older, I was at boarding school, and I think I was about 14, and we went for a bushwalk. And my mum didn't realize that I'd grown just a little bit taller than her, and we were walking along. And this sort of thing, my mum's like, we're walking along, she's guiding me, and she walks under this big tree branch, and I walked straight into it, like, fuck, like, whack. And it nearly knocked me out, and I'm like lying on the bush path. And she's like, Clinton, are you getting up and finishing the bushwalk, or am I leaving you here? So, my mom was super tough on me, which, and I say it, and some people out there probably hear this and go, oh my God, his mom is so mean and whatever. But for me personally, I'm so thankful to the way my mom was and how tough she was with bringing me up, because I'm very independent because of it. And that makes it very easy for me when I it makes it a lot easier for me when I do things like competing in jiu-jitsu tournaments and stuff. Anyway, so I lived with my mom. My mom and dad separated when I was very young, so I don't know my dad. So my mom brought me up. She was a single parent. I have three brothers and a sister. My mom's a bit of a gypsy soul, so we moved around a lot when I was growing up. Sometimes we'd come home from school and there'd be a moving truck in our driveway, and my mom would be like, "Surprise, we're moving," and we'd be like, "Oh man." It made it very tough with schooling and stuff, but it made for an interesting upbringing. Uh, School and stuff was all. I mean, school was tough for me when I started because I was bullied quite severely. But a lot of people go through that sort of stuff. I try not to dwell on. I don't know, dwell on the negative, because although it happened and it sucked, and when I went through it, it was really miserable. It's like, well, what's the point in dwelling on that now? Like, I'm 37 now. I don't need to be like, oh, I was bullied at school. That disadvantages me or whatever. I mean, yeah, it sucked when it happened and whatever, but I learned ways of getting around it. And I mean, it was pretty bad. Like, one of the schools I went to was a small rural school that never had a blind kid at the school before. So whatever's different is a target for children a lot of the time, especially like now with technology and stuff, and the world's a lot more connected. It's not so strange, but back then, it was a bit different. So at one of the schools, the kids were really bad. Like, they would spit on me, they would like hit me, they, throw stones at me, and I don't know. I I've got a temper, and one day, one of the kids who was the ringleader, we were standing at the bus stop, and he tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around to look at him, and he spat in my face. So I was holding a old-fashioned cane. Like, these days, all the canes that blind people use, they fold up. But the one I had was a rigid one, and it had a big hook at the end that you could hang it on, like a coat hanger or something. And it was solid. So I just turned around. And as I turned, I used it through my hands, and I cracked his shin bone with it, like actually broke it. So, I was bullied, but I fought back. And yeah, okay, terrible times, but as I said, like that sort of stuff, I don't know. It's not like going blind and stuff. It gives you perspective, and like once I got older, you realize, that stuff is just stupid kid stuff, and you shouldn't let it affect the rest of your life. So I hardly ever think about it really, with that sort of thing. Um, so yeah, we moved around a lot. I went to a lot of different schools and stuff. I didn't really enjoy school because I had two sides of school. I had the normal part of school, which everybody has, and then I had the teacher aide side of school, or the teacher assistants, because of being blind. And the problem is, those guys would battle with the teachers a lot, and my teacher aides, who were actually there to like read stuff off blackboards and give me assistance with what I needed in class, in the fact of anything that I couldn't do by seeing. Like if I needed something written down, that meant to write it. If I needed something reading out that I couldn't read, that meant to read it. That was their job, but they took it further than that, and they thought they were in charge of me as well. So, you know, I ended up leaving school early, which I don't recommend to anybody. But I left school when I was 15, and when I was 17, I ended up in a very small town called Featherston here in New Zealand. It's just outside of our capital. And I was sitting around one night, and I bought a caravan for myself because I had a big family, and my mom, she was a solo parent, so she didn't have very much money. Um, I'd gotten some money, and I'd never had a bedroom to myself. I'd always had to share. So I bought myself a caravan, and I moved out into the backyard. So I finally had a room to myself. And anyway, my brother, youngest brother, comes along one day, and he starts pounding on my caravan door. Clinton, I found a wrestling club. And I was like, oh, yeah, go away, whatever. I was 17, he was 9. And he keeps knocking, no, it's really cool. It's a wrestling club. You should come have a look. And I'm like, I thought it was like WWE wrestling, whatever. So I'm like, nah, bugger off, like, go away. And anyway, my mom comes out, and she's like, look, go with him, keep him happy, whatever. And in bad grace, as you do when you're older and you've got to go do something with the younger sibling that you don't want to do. I was like, oh, fine, whatever. Went down the road, and here's this wrestling club, and it was Olympic style wrestling club. And I joined in, and man, this shows you how things can change your life. Because if I had ignored my brother that day, I would be in a completely different place to where I am now. And it shows you small decisions can have huge impacts in your life. But anyway, I did the class, and I was like, man, this is awesome, because I'd always been into sport, and I'd always enjoyed doing physical things, and I tried pretty much every sport that my brothers and that had done. Um, I played soccer. Um, I tried rugby. I tried cricket. No, I tried everything. But of course, being blind, right? I can't see my hand when I hold it out arm's length in front of me. You're playing soccer. A guy kicks a ball in one direction, and Clinton runs the other way to try get it. All sports and that don't work out very well for blind people. So here was a sport where, to take me down, people had to grab hold of me. I had brothers, so I loved play fighting. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the sport for me. I'm going to do this. So I signed up at the club. I started training. Um, After 6 weeks, they were going to a tournament. So I was like, yeah, I want to go to the tournament. And, I thought I was going to do pretty well. I went to the tournament. I got absolutely destroyed. I got pinned in like 30 seconds. And I was like, man, this is so awesome. And, they were getting ready for nationals and stuff, and they were talking about nationals. So I'm like, man, I'm going to be a national champ at this sport. So I started telling everybody I was going to be a national champ, and everybody kind of laughed at me, and they're like, yeah, right. Like, you're not that good, and, you can't win matches. I mean, I ended up losing my first 40 fights in wrestling without scoring a single point. And I kept telling people, I'm going to be a national champ. I'm going to be a national champ. And in 2005, I was doing a training. I'd moved up to Auckland where there was better training and stuff. I was living up here with my mum. And I met, so I'd been doing it for a while. So in 2005, I was at a training camp with a guy called Koji Hirabashi. He was a Japanese guy that came out to New Zealand, and he was looking to move here. He'd retired, and he was looking to move here, and he represented Canada at the Olympics in 1964. And he was at the camp, and we were training or whatever. I hadn't won a medal by this stage. I'd been given default medals, but I had never won a medal. And at the end of the camp, he was like, "Oh, I've never seen a blind wrestler before. Like, what are your goals of wrestling and stuff?" And I told him I want to be a national champ. And he was like, "Oh, that's so cool. You've got a lot of work to do. Let's get on with that." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And he was like, "Yeah, well, you've got a lot of work to do. Like, we've got to make you better at wrestling, but let's do that. I'll tell you what, his English is really bad." And he was like, "I'll tell you what, I'll trade you spoken English lessons. You help me with talking English, and I'll help you with your wrestling." And he became the coach of the club that I was at. So I would go to training, and I would travel right across town. Like, it would take me an hour and a half by train to get to where he was coaching. We'd do training, and then he would drive me halfway home. Like, oh, it's hard to explain with New Zealand because, but our city is kind of long, and I was like, I lived on the west side of our city, and the training was all the way out on the south side. So what he would do is drive me into our CBD, the city, the big city, the township, to the big main train station, which was half of my train journey. And the whole way there, I would talk with him English, like help him with his English and stuff. So we did that, and I slowly started winning matches. I won my first bronze medal, and then silver medal, and finally in 2007, I won my first national wrestling title, which was amazing because, all these people had said I'd never be able to do it, and then I did it, and I ended up going on to win 10 national wrestling titles. And in this time, while I was training with Koji, of course, I'd always watched the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games. And, I decided to myself, I was like, you know what? Let's make an even bigger goal. I want to either go to the Olympics, the Commonwealth Games, or the World Championships of Wrestling. I don't care which one. I just want to go to one of them. And so when I won my first national title, because unlike Jiu-Jitsu and wrestling, you have to qualify for everything. After I won my first national title, I got invited to the national team, and I went to the Oceania Championships in the beginning of 2008. And I was like, okay, I'm the national champ. I'm the man. That's it. I can do this. I'm going to win. And I went there, and I had 2 matches and only scored 2 points and got beaten pretty badly. And I was like, next year, I'm going to win this. And Koji was there with me. And I said to him, when I came off the mat, I was like, next year, I will get the gold medal here. And he was like, yeah, of course. We'll go home and we'll work on it. We know what we need to work on now. So we went back, and the next year in 2009, I ended up winning my first Oceania title. I ended up from 2009 to 2014, I won 3 titles, but every year I was in a finals. So I was doing Greco and freestyle at these tournaments, and I would always be in at least one final. So I'd either get at least 1 gold or 1 silver at the tournament, and usually I'd medal in both. Usually I'd get like a gold and a bronze, or I'd get a silver and a bronze, or whatever. That was up to 2014. 2014 was my last Oceania tournament. In 2013, I was finally selected to go to what it was Thola then, but is now United World Wrestling World Champs. I believe I was the first and only blind person to ever compete there, and it was cool because that tournament I did 3 firsts. I was the first blind person to ever compete there. I was the first New Zealander to ever do Greco-Roman at the World Champs, and I was the first New Zealander to do both freestyle and Greco-Roman at the World Champs. So that was pretty cool. I set a lot of firsts at everything. I like setting firsts. So I ended up with reasonably successful. I got smashed at the world champs. The world champs in wrestling is a very serious tournament. You know, I mean, I don't know how many of the jiu-jitsu people know watching, but basically, if you imagine that the world champs, if you imagine the jiu-jitsu world champs was only the black belt national champion from every weight division was allowed to compete at the world champs. That is, um, you know, that's the world champs. It's not, if you want to go, you can enter. Like you have to be your country's national champ, and only one per country per weight division can enter. So if that was the jiu-jitsu world champs, they'd be a lot smaller than they are. So you know, a pretty serious tournament. I lost, but I'd never had aspirations of being a wrestling world medalist. I just wanted to make it to the worlds. I don't think New Zealand has ever won a medal at the wrestling world champs. Like, so I knew that just making it to the world was like huge deal for New Zealand wrestling. So I'd kind of made it to the pinnacle of where I could make it with wrestling. And in this time, I met my wife. So my wife and I have been together for 20 years now. We met when we were very young. I met my wife when I was just starting. I was 18, nearly 19 when I met her, and so I'd met my wife, and we had two children, and to go any further in wrestling, I would have had to move overseas. And even if I moved overseas, I wouldn't have been able to do much more than what I'd already achieved. And, you know, we were a young family. We didn't have much money. So moving overseas was not really an option. So in 2014, a friend of mine who I'd met through wrestling came to me, and he was coaching a girl for an MMA fight, and the girl she was fighting was a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. And he came to me and he was like, look, I've got this girl who's fighting an MMA fight. She's fighting a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. We don't want her to get taken down on the ground, because if she does, she's going to lose because she's a white belt. Can you teach her anti-grappling? So I said, yep, okay. That sounds like fun. So I joined in her training camp, and I did a lot of wrestling with her. She ended up winning her fight. The girl couldn't take her down, and she beat her with Muay Thai. She ended up winning her fight, and the head of my gym, Tukaha Jiu-Jitsu, he said to me, Clinton, would you be interested in swapping, becoming like a takedown coach for us? And if you do that, you can train jiu-jitsu for free. And I was like, yes, okay, that's awesome. Because while I'd been coaching her, I'd been doing the jiu-jitsu classes. And I realized, man, it's so cool. Like I'm not the best guy in the room here. Like I don't have any expectations on me to be good. I can lose, and everyone's beating me up, and I can learn stuff. Like it was really exciting to go back to the bottom of the heap, you know, and not be the guy that everybody was looking to be the best in the room, or to set an example or lead or coach or whatever. And it really excited me. And I'd been teaching wrestling for about 10 years at this stage, kids wrestling, and and adults as well. But I had two young kids. Well, they started with me when they were young. They started when they were 8 years old. And then they were just coming up into an age and weight where they were going to have to compete against me. And so I got put into a little bit of a dilemma, you know, like, do I teach them how to beat me because I was the national champ in that weight division, or do I sabotage their training so that I can stay the national champ? And you know, as a coach, you can't really do that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to retire from wrestling. Jiu-jitsu was meant to be my retirement sport. I was like, okay, I'm pretty much done with competing. I'd actually done a couple of jiu-jitsu tournaments because some people had talked me into it. I actually won my first jiu-jitsu tournament before I started jiu-jitsu. It was the one and only time I've ever been allowed to compete in white belt. But I was at a no-gi tournament. I'd done one no-gi tournament before. Sorry, I've done two no-gi tournaments before because I accidentally ended up in an international tournament. But yeah, anyway. And we're at another no-gi tournament, and they were like, oh, how come you're not fighting today, Clinton? I was like, oh, the Oceanias are in 2 weeks, so I can't afford to get injured, whatever. I was like, oh, I'll do the next one. And somebody said to me, oh, the next one's a gi tournament. A wrestler wouldn't be brave enough to put on a gi. I love challenges. And I was like, okay, yeah, I'll be there and I will have a gi on. And so I entered in the tournament, I ended up winning. I wasn't expecting to win, but I did. And it was the only time I've ever been allowed to compete in white belt. so so I'd sort of done that while I was wrestling, but I was like, okay, I'm gonna sort of stop competing now, whatever. And then I was training, and the guys at the gym were getting ready for a tournament. I was like, oh, okay, I'll do the tournament with you guys. I did the tournament. I won a silver medal, and I thought to myself, you know what? It'll be great. Like what I've done is crazy. Like I'm a 10-time national wrestling champion, whatever. You know what? Let's see if I can be a national champion in another sport. Like so. I just trained and as I said, I only fought one tournament at white belt. So when I was a I was a white belt in my club for 1 year, but that year I was fighting blue belt. I got silver in both gi and no gi at the nationals, and then the next year in blue belt, I got gold in both gi and no gi at the nationals, and then well, I don't know. I've won 5 jiu-jitsu national titles. Um, and then I was like, oh, some guys went over to an international comp. Actually, the guy who got me into jiu-jitsu was going to the Pan Pacific Champs, and he asked me if I wanted to go, and I was like, yeah, cool, I'll go. And I fought there as a blue belt, and I got gold in gi, and I got gold in open open weight no gi, and I got silver in no gi in my weight division. I actually ripped my intercostal muscle in half, so I got eliminated out of. I'd won 3 matches in the gi open weight as well, but my rib dislocated and came out over the top of another rib, so I had to pull out before the final. And then I don't know, I kept competing, and I was like, you know what, let's do a world champs in jiu-jitsu. So I went and did that in 2016. I lost in the first round. It was 2-2, one advantage to the guy, and I was like, man, you know what? I could do pretty well at this. I reckon I could medal at Worlds in Jiu-Jitsu. You know what? I'll finish out my story by being a world medalist in Jiu-Jitsu. So I kept going to Worlds, and last year at the World Masters, I got bronze in a 47-man bracket, and here we are. It's a long story, and I don't know. I find it, for me now, I find it quite boring because I tell the story or whatever. But I don't know. People seem to find it inspiring, and that's cool because people can find me, use me for inspiration to go out and chase crazy dreams. I'm all for that because too much in the world these days, people are told you can't do that, and as soon as they're told you can't do that, they're like, oh, I can't do that. So they quit before they even try to achieve what they want to achieve. So if they can hear my story and be like, well, screw you to the people who say you can't do it, man, that's awesome. And I'm glad I can help people like that because I think everybody should have, crazy high goals and expectations of themselves because people deserve that, right? Like you deserve to be the best you can be. So don't be afraid to have big goals and dreams for yourself. I find it crazy when people settle for less because people tell them they have to.
Good stuff, man. Like, this is why I wanted to reach out to you. Like, the world is fear. The world holds people back. Fear holds you back from your goals and tells you can't, right? They always say the sky's the limit, right? Like, you
No,
can.
it's funny because people say that, right? They say, "Oh, the sky's the limit," and then you have a blind guy come into your gym and says to you, "Oh, I want to be a national champion." And they go, "Oh, you can't do that." So it's kind of funny how people are quick to take that back, and I wish more people had that sort of attitude, and not just as a throwaway line, but the sky's the limit, and you get a blind person come into your gym and says, "I want to be a national champion." And you should be like, wow, no matter what you actually think. Like when I coach, I see myself as a facilitator, right? My job is to provide my students with whatever they want and to help them achieve whatever they want. So if someone comes in, let's say, maybe they're in their 40s or 50s and they come in, they're like, look, I want to try jiu-jitsu. I've always wanted to try martial art. This seems exciting. I'm doing it for a bit of fitness and to have fun or whatever. My job is to help them get fit and to make jiu-jitsu super fun for them. If someone comes into my gym and says, Clinton, I want to be a world champion, my job is to thrash them and make them into a world champion, right? It's not my job to say your job or your dream is not possible. It's my job to do everything I can to help you achieve what you want to achieve. And I wish more people, and I use jujitsu as an example because that's my field, but you get like in school, you get people say, I want to get straight A's, or you get kids that say, oh, I want to be a doctor, and people are like, oh, you're not going to be a doctor. Look at your family, like look at your background. That's not going to happen. People should be more encouraging of other people's dreams. They shouldn't be so quick to be like, oh no, you can't do it. Because I think a lot more people would achieve greater things if people if people supported them and were like, yeah, I'm more than happy to get on board and assist you with what you're doing.
It's awesome. That's awesome because like you can't do it alone. You need like-minded people that will build you up. Like you're a wrestling coach. You told him, he's like, yeah, let's do it. He said it for what it is. We got a lot of work to do, but let's do it. Where you need that people, that community of like-minded people. So if you hang out with like misery, that's what you're gonna get. But if you hang out with people like your mom, it's like, no, let's go. Like pick up, let's go. Would you think that is a big deal too in order to get to where you want to be in life?
Yeah, for sure. And when I say people should be more supportive of getting goals and whatever, like for me being a world champ, right? I have someone who supports me, and their job as a support person, like, okay, I have a bad day at training, and I'm like, man, I can't do this, or it's hard, it's tough, whatever. As a support person, their job might not be to be like, oh, Clinton, it's okay, you're going to be a world champion, and be supportive in that way. It might be supportive as in, Clinton, stop your bitching and work hard. You want to be a world champion. You've got to, if you want to be the world champion, or you're going to be the world champion. That means you've got to put in the work. Like, support can be in different ways, and support is not necessarily always positive reinforcement. Sometimes you've got to be told, like for me, it's never really been an issue of not turning up to training. But for example, if I had somebody that came in and said to me, Clinton, I want to be, actually, I have an example rather than a theoretical. I had a girl, she said to me at the beginning of last year, I want to be on the podium at every tournament next year. And I said to her, do you mean that? And she said, yes. And I said, right, don't expect me to be all like, oh, you can do it or whatever. And, she would not turn up to training. And I'd like straight away after training, why weren't you at training today? Oh, I had a hard day at work, I'm tired. No, that's not an excuse. You told me you wanted to be on the podium. If you're not at training tomorrow, I'm not going to take you seriously. Like, because, it's all good and well for people to support you, but if you're going to have crazy goals, I can't do the work for you. But, sometimes you've got to be, I don't know, cruel to be kind, I guess, and put it out there like, hey, you told me you want to medal at every tournament. Get your ass to training, because you're not going to do it if you're, and I don't care if you're tired after work. If you want to medal at every tournament this year, it doesn't matter if you're tired, you turn up to training. So um, I think like knowing what sort of support the person needs to pushing them towards that goal is also important.
Yeah. You need people. If someone loves you, they'll call you out for what it is.
Yeah, for sure.
People that don't love you, I feel, is not gonna tell you what you need to hear, so you can grow.
Yeah, and I had this problem right at the end of my wrestling career where, I was winning all the time at Oceania's. So long it was Oceania level international. I was one of the best 74 kilo guys or 160-pound guys in the region. And, I wanted to start doing better against like the Commonwealth guys, like the Indians, South Africans, and stuff like that, because those guys are Canadians, they're all pretty good in the Commonwealth. And I'd be saying to my coaches, like, what do I need to do to improve? And they'd be saying, oh, we can't help you. You're fine. You're really good. You're doing what you're doing. That's, you know, you don't need to do anything else. You wrestle really good. And I'm like, I'm not that good, because if I was that good, I'd be the world champion. Like I would. And so I need the input of what I'm doing wrong. And they couldn't give it to me. And I think in that case, it was more of a fact that they didn't have the knowledge um, rather than, deliberately trying to be like, oh, you're already so good, you don't need to get better. But, there are people out there that when people say that to them, instead of, being worried about hurting their feelings, they're like, oh, you do better. It's funny. My competition coach, so at Sukaha Jiu Jitsu, the head of our coach is Pedro Fernandez, and then we've got a whole heap of black belts and stuff there that coach different classes and stuff. My coach, who, because Pedro obviously can't oversee one-on-one competition stuff and watch all my sparring and stuff all the time. So my main coach, who works on my competition game plan and then watches over my sparring and makes sure, like, gives me guidance and advice and stuff. Her name is Van, and when she started coaching me, she was one of only 4 women black belts in New Zealand, and she's very small lady, and so she's very, very technical, but she's people say to me, "Oh man, I wish you would help me out or whatever," and I say to her, "She will help you. Just ask her." But always say to people, don't go to her and expect her to stroke your ego and ever to tell you you're good at your jiu-jitsu, because in the 3.5 years I've been training with her, I think she's complimented me on my jiu-jitsu 6 times. um, it's funny. So on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, after we've done she watches me sparring, and the conversation after sparring always starts like this: Clinton, just one small thing about your jujitsu today. And I know, oh my gosh, here comes the criticism, But it's funny, I laugh about it because it's what I wanted, even small mistakes, she's like, you made this small mistake, we've got to work on that, we've got to fix it. It might be a small, but every time it's, Clinton, just one small thing about your jiu-jitsu. So it's always correction. So her style of coaching wouldn't be for everybody, because, as I said, I think she's complimented me like 6 times in my jiu-jitsu. And it's not that she doesn't think that my jiu-jitsu is good or at a reasonable level. It's just that she knows that my goal was to win a world medal, and she knows to win a world medal, my jiu-jitsu has to be better than most people. So, she's very tough on me, which is great.
That's awesome, man. Good stuff, man. That's what I want people to hear is just never give up, always persevere. And I think you've had your mom always there to lead you through. Um, now now this is obviously a jiu-jitsu podcast, but also too, I am a believer in Jesus Christ, and I wanted to kind of ask you on your faith, on your religion, on what you've gone through, because there's got to be something bigger than just, oh, there's got to be a bigger purpose in your life that I feel, and I think you do too, that you're what you've gone through as such a little baby, that little kid, that there's a bigger purpose in all this, and that there's good coming out of your story. Tell us about maybe your beliefs on that.
Uh, my belief system is, well, I definitely believe there is a higher power out there. What it is, I'm not sure. I was. Oh, this is interesting because I've never actually talked about this, so this podcast will be the first time I've talked about this. My mom was Christian to start with. Like we used to say prayer. I can remember saying prayers at night, but at some stage in my upbringing, my mother moved away from Christianity for whatever reason. I'm not sure, and she got into more of the occult. She got into Wicca and stuff like that. Um, she she did a lot of study of the Golden Dawn, so she started having those sort of beliefs that gods and goddesses and stuff like that. She'd do rituals and and things. So it was interesting being brought up with my mom having that belief system. She reads tarot cards for people and stuff like that. So I find it hard to believe everything that my mom believes in, but there's also parts of um, I don't know parts of Christianity that is tricky as well, I guess. So for me, I don't know. I went to Bible study and stuff when I was young, but I don't know. I guess I don't know. I myself personally, I believe there is something higher out there that guides us. Like every again, I don't really tell people this, but every day that I compete, like I don't pray every day or pray. Well, I say pray, but it's probably not quite pray the way that not pray to anyone in particular, but to the higher powers. I don't pray every day because I think, well, the higher powers probably have more things to worry about than my life. Like, my life's reasonably good, and I don't need to be, there's a whole universe out there for the higher powers to be looking after. But every morning before competition, I do um, send a request out there to the higher powers in the universe. And I always say, please let me fight with strength, courage, and honor. Please let my teammates be safe. Allow no major injuries to anybody competing today. And, and allow me to represent my team and family and not let them down. And I always do that in the morning. And then afterwards at night when I'm having my shower afterwards, I always give thanks as well. Like thank you for, and then whatever's happened that day, like for great results or for the learnings that I've had, or make a thank you that myself and my daughter aren't injured because my daughter also competes. So I do believe there's something out there, and I do I don't know, I guess send out prayers occasionally, but I'm not a huge believer. I do believe that people should be able to believe in whatever they want. Like I've got friends that are Christian. I've got friends that are like Catholic Christian. I've got friends that are Muslim. Um, as I said, my mum is into Wiccan beliefs and witchcraft and stuff. Not like sacrificing people and that, but she is more into the occult. So my belief, not so much religious belief, but my belief is that people should do what they want so long as they're not hurting themselves or other people. So you know, I think tolerance for all people, but yeah, I do have some sort of belief. It's hard to explain though.
No, I think this is a conversation that I like how so you've competed at the very high level that I didn't know about. I didn't know you were high level in wrestling. Like that's a big deal. Like so you pray to God, right, and then you would give thanks. So
Yeah,
that it's not from you, that it was given to you. Um, maybe these talents. I mean, you didn't let any of this stuff hold you back. Which, like you say, the world says you can't, but you did. But I think you would agree that you know that it's not from yourself. So in that moment that you're so passionate and wrestling and world championship and competing at that high level, you would know like, oh man, like I need some help. Help me. If you would agree.
Yeah, but the thing, like, I don't know, like, with my upbringing, because the other thing that I don't talk about very often, but now that we're coming into faith, I kind of have to talk about it. And in fact, again, man, you're getting me to talk about stuff that other people haven't, like I've never talked about with other people on podcasts and stuff. But I was a victim of sexual abuse when I was a child, which pretty much nobody knows until right now. So surprise everyone. But you know, with I know so many. Well, you hear people that they're on drugs, they're criminals or whatever, and they say things like, "Oh, it was my upbringing that did it to me," whatever. Well, you know, I was a victim of sexual abuse. Again, as I said, I don't dwell on it too much because I decided not to let it affect me the way it affects some people. But I was extremely bullied at school. I had to deal with my blindness. My mom was very, we had no money, so I had a very, I guess you'd say, poor upbringing. Poor as in, not very much material stuff. Like um, we always had secondhand clothes and stuff. We always had something to eat, but sometimes what we ate was adventurous. My mom would just throw together whatever we had in the cupboard to make something for us to eat. And so, I had a tough upbringing, but I I find it sad, I guess, if it is up to a higher power that I could make the decision to be who I am and not, I don't know, like not rely on drugs to deal with my issues or, become a criminal or whatever. Um, if that's up to a higher power, I feel sad that they would decide to give me, they would give me the ability to overcome, but not other people, because there are so many people that are living it so tough and doing bad things, and they had bad upbringings then, so they made the decision to go down a bad path as well. I'm like, man, why wouldn't the higher person sort of help everybody make better decisions? Not, it's so I try to think that a lot of, yes, there is a higher power out there, but a lot of it is our own decision making, because otherwise it's pretty arbitrary, right? Like, okay, you're going to make good decisions, you're going to make bad decisions, end up in jail, you're going to make good decisions and be a blind world medalist. Like, you know, like how do they make that decision and stuff? So I think, and I hope that we have some power over it ourselves to make good decisions or bad decisions, to end up where we end up, because otherwise it's a bit, as said, it's a bit sad and heart wrenching, really.
No, thank you for that, for sharing with that. I think it's really, it sucks that you've gone through that, and there is a lot of evil, right? So like you say, you can let those things really affect you and blame it on your upbringing, or you can have the choice to persevere and don't let those things hold you back. And there is a lot of people out there that have fallen into those things. Like you said, I think I could agree with you. There is a higher power. For me, it's God, right? And also too, it's your choices. In the Bible, it's you have free will, right? We're deal with these decisions, right? So I really respect you. I really truly do, because I'll keep saying this, man. Like, I don't know if I was in your shoes and I would be at your level in life, because I guess I can myself be easily distracted and negative quickly, even though I found my black belt, wife, kids, and all this, and even with this quarantine, my school shut down. I at times can also be negative and want to quit. But I think we do have these choices to continue to dwell in our shell, which I believe the enemy, the devil, can is good at keeping us there. Maybe with drugs and temptation and all these things, or you can choose to go the better route and persevere and don't let these things get to you. But I really think that I believe that God has really big plans for you, and as I can see from then till now, how far you've come. And not only from now, because you're at brown belt level, you still got a lot to go to still show and grow and let everybody know, like, hey, like, you can do it, you know? So I
Yeah.
applaud you.
So for you as a believer in God as the higher power, which percentages do you think is God's plan for you and your decisions? Like, if you put a percentage on the way your life goes, because you obviously believe, as I believe, that the higher powers, they sort of have a plan, and there is some sort of plan and why things are happening. Because otherwise, if you don't believe that, then oh my gosh, that's kind of scary. So you obviously believe that, and as do I. Which percentage do you attribute to God making, like, putting you on your path, and then you making your choices?
Good. Okay. I like this. Okay. If I understand the question correctly, is what percentage is God and what percentage is me? Is that the question?
Yeah, like what percentage is God guiding you, and and what percentages is your free will dictating your choices?
Very good question. Okay, so before I became a believer, it was 100% me, all of it. And that led me down a very bad path. Now, I'm learning and continuing to put God first in all my decisions, mainly the big ones. Not so much like, oh, what should I have for breakfast? But more of like, okay, if I do this, this is what's gonna happen, right? Maybe because I'm older now, I'm 36. Okay, so I asked God, like, Lord, like, what do you want me to do? Because I noticed that my big decisions require faith, and especially things that I can't see. Now it's like, I don't want to fail you. I don't want to go down a bad path. I don't want to hurt my family. I don't want to hurt myself. So I think it's maybe 50-50, and I could be wrong, but I put him first. I asked him, like, if he's my heavenly father, like, what do you want me to do? And then I don't hear it maybe audibly, but I could feel it maybe in my head where he says, do that. And then I'll read my scripture, I'll read my Bible, and then I'm like, okay. And then at that point, then I make the decision to follow him in that. So maybe 50-50, maybe 110. That's a good one, and I like that. That's a good one, man. Thank you.
See, the way, it, I mean, I'd already sort of decided there was a higher power out there and stuff, and that there was something happening. But in 2009, I was meant to qualify to go to the Commonwealth Games, and that didn't end up happening. I didn't meet qualification, and I was going to quit grappling. I was like, that's it, I'm done. I'd spent um, a year, nearly 2 years, like working my ass off to achieve this goal, and it didn't happen. And I was like, okay, it's hard work, and I'm gonna have to start all over again if I want to meet qualification. It's because everybody hears about my successes, but to have all those successes, I had a lot of failures as well. Like, and I mean failures as in you can take failure to learn or whatever. But at the end of the day, there were failures along my way. Um, and this is just the last straw, and what actually happened was pretty. It wasn't cool. It was politics that kept me out of it, which I was like, man, I've been against it all way long. I've done what I needed to do, and now they're using politics to not let me get to my goal. That's it. I'm done. I'm quitting. And my grandmother grew sick with cancer, and she said to me, I mean, she always said to me when I was growing up, Clinton, there's a plan for you. You're going to be something in your life. You're going to end up inspiring a lot of people. And man, when I was young, like, she would say this to me when I was like 8 or 9. And I just laughed at her. I'm the blind kid at school that's getting picked on, whatever. And I'm like, no, that's not what my life is like. And she's like, no, Clinton, it's all going to be worthwhile in the end. You're destined to be something and someone who's going to inspire people. And I'm like, nah, whatever. Anyway, in 2000, well, it was actually 2010 when they gave me the decision that I wasn't going to go. I said, no, that's it. I'm done. Whatever. I told my family, that's it. I'm quitting. I'm not doing wrestling anymore. And my grandmother developed cancer, and she rang me up and she said, you are not quitting. And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, you still have your destiny to fulfill. You've got to stay at it because this is your destiny. It's your path, and if you stick at it, you're gonna end up someone that people look up to and whatever. And I was like, oh, I don't really, maybe, but what can you do? That my nana's dying and she's asking me to not give up on grappling. So I was kind of like, oh, all right, fine, I'll go back to training. I went back and continued on, and here we are. So, I was told by someone all my life that this is going to happen, and it's like, well, when you get told something like that, and you don't believe it when you're super young, and then it comes to pass, I guess it does make it a bit easier to believe, that things are meant to happen for a reason.
Amen. Well, thank you so much for jumping on. Like, you inspired me. How about that? Thank you. And I know a lot of people can really take a lot from this. So thank you so much. Very
I
grateful
hope
for
so.
this.
That's it, man. If I can just encourage one person to reach out there for a crazy dream that they thought wasn't going to be doable, and people told them they couldn't do it, and they're like, man, this blind guy, everybody told him that he couldn't do it, and now look what he's doing. And then they go on and they achieve some sort of crazy goal. I mean, that just, that's just a blessing for me because, you know, um, with my life, I've had an interesting life, but I'm happy with where I'm at with my life. I feel like I don't want to die now, obviously, but if I was to die now, the only regret that I would have is that I would leave, like, broad regret, like, obviously there's smaller things, but the only true, real, major regret that I'd have is that I would leave my wife and kids. My kids, they are not adults yet, and I don't believe that children should have to bury their parents. And I'm deeply in love with my wife, and I couldn't imagine dying and then her not being there. So that would be just terrible for me. But like, achievement wise, I feel like even at 37, I've had a pretty fulfilling life myself. So if I can now encourage other people to go out and do crazy stuff, man, that's just what a blessing for me that I can do that for people. So, I hope people go out and smash crazy dreams, and let me know about it.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. Do you have any shout outs? Anything else you want to say?
Well, obviously, my first shout out is always to my family because, without my family, I wouldn't be where I'm at. Like, behind the scenes, especially my wife, she does a lot behind the scenes when I'm broken and injured and having a bad day and all of that. She's the one who I come home to and has to help put me back together, or, you know, deal with my misery if I'm having like a bad run at training or whatever. So, she does a lot for me. So always shout out to my family. and my kids, they're awesome. I mean, my daughter does jiu-jitsu. I train her all the time, and my son is grown. He's 17 now, and he's developed into such a nice human being that I'm super blessed with my children. A shout out, obviously, to my sponsor because I get sponsored by Hyperfly. So um, I don't know whether my code would work for people in America, but if you order from the Hyperfly Australia uh, hyperfly.au, uh, hyperfly.com.au, if you use the code Blind Grappler, BLINDGRAPPLER, or one word, you can get a discount. And of course, for my jiu-jitsu, a shout out to Tukaha Jiu-Jitsu. If anybody's out there and they come to New Zealand and they're in Auckland, New Zealand, please come visit us. I coach at an affiliate of our school, and I also train at our HQ. We love visitors. We don't charge drop-in fees, so if anybody ever wants to come in and train with us, we just love visitors. So it's always free to train with us. Hit me up on my Instagram if you're coming over, and I'll organize training for anybody who comes over to New Zealand. I love training with new people, and my gym love having new people. So please reach out to us. But yeah, that's Tukaha Jiu-Jitsu.
Awesome. What's your Instagram? What can they follow you on? What would be under?
My Instagram is Blind Grappler as well.
Awesome. Cool, man. I want to give a shout out to Reyes Coffee, small business in Los Angeles, California. 360 Kimonos that's making masks right now, and the Gospel Grappler. He gave me a shirt, and he's helping us out here. Do you know the Gospel Grappler?
No.
Yeah, he was on my previous one, and it's good stuff, man. Check it out. I told him, yeah, I'm gonna have a interview with the blind grappler. He's like, oh yeah, I follow him. So your word's getting out there, man.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Cool, man. Well, I want to pray us out, and then we'll be out. Well, dear Heavenly Father, Lord, we come to you in Jesus' name. I thank you, Father God, for Clinton and his story. Lord, for he's so strong that you give him so much strength to persevere in life, and also, come out with things that that he's hidden, and to expose it and tell people, things happen, but you keep going and don't dwell. So I thank you for his testimony. I thank you for his encouragement and the positivity that you've given him. And we know that, you've given us all a plan. You gave him a plan, and we know that it's not over yet. His destiny's not over yet. So we just thank you for this time and for this always just this goodness that you give us, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
Well, good to hear that you are off of lockdown pretty soon.
Well,
And
yeah, they gave us the guidelines yesterday, and so we're scheduled to come out. Well, we're going to level 2, so there still will be some restrictions. They want to keep social distancing and stuff, but they've said so long as you have a good hygiene plan for a gym, we will be able to open. So I'm hoping I'll be in the gym coaching on Tuesday night. So excited because it's been 6 weeks since I've been on the mat, and I'm going nuts.
yeah, man, and I know a lot of people could relate, man. And but yeah, man, I'll be praying for you, and just we could all get our toy, our jiu-jitsu, our life that we love so much, and maybe value it more than we've done before, which was already a lot. So
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, God bless you, brother. Let's keep in touch. Have a good day, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.